Today we're going to learn how to use keyboard input to do something. Since keyboard input is registered locally, we must use a local script in order for it to work. In programming terms, we're going to make something called a callback function. A callback function is a function you give to another system, so that system can call it later. This will make more sense soon. We can begin by creating a function. If you don't know how to do that, you can check out my previous video. The name of the function can be anything. We're going to need two parameters since the callback function is going to feed the function those values. To avoid confusing you, I'll just call them parameter 1 and 2. Then we're going to need an if statement to check if the key we're pressing is the one we want. Parameter 1 will be given an object later. We'll need to access this object and access something called an enum. I have a separate video on enums, but basically, it's a variable from the engine that contains all keyboard inputs. And we want to check if we've got the right key. Enum is to access the global container containing all enum types. KeyCode is the type of enum we want to check for. And then the key you want to check. Then decide what happens. I'll just print something. But you can do an infinite amount of things. So now if we try to call the function, we're going to get an error. This is because the parameter value doesn't exist. We haven't assigned it anything. Also, this function is supposed to be called when you press the right key. This is what I meant when I said callback function. Input is handled using an event called InputBegan. This event lives inside the UserInputService, which we can get like this. From here, we'll connect the function, and everything will work. To explain this more visually, imagine it like electricity. This is the InputBegan event that we get using GetService. These are the parameters of the event. We connect that to the function we created. These are the parameters we created. I still haven't mentioned what the second parameter is for, but don't worry about that right now. You can create the function without them, but then the values will be ignored and the code won't work. So when we call the function, the values are passed over like this. Then we check if the key that was pressed on our keyboard matches the key that we set in the function. If it does, execute the given code. Even though you can name the parameters whatever you'd like, Roblox officially uses these two names. But there's a problem. If you press the key while you're typing in the chat, the code will run. You usually don't want that. That's where the second parameter comes in. This parameter is a Boolean. So all we need to do is check if it's true. If it is true, meaning that we're typing in the chat, then we want to end the function so that the rest of the code doesn't happen. So this is one way to do it. This is also the correct way to do it, so to speak. But you can also create the function directly in the other line of code. This will, however, be what's called an anonymous function, and you won't be able to get it because it doesn't have a name. Oops, that's the wrong direction. I'll use the space key this time to mix things up.